It's time for another intelligence gathering session. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Okay. So, there's been a lot of incidences that have happened, the past couple of weeks. Yeah. But we've had a couple of people killed by police officers.
Yeah.
And then we had a person kill a couple of police officers and injure a lot more.
Yeah.
So, this intelligence brief is going to primarily be about police and the police force, because there seems to be right now in our country, in the environments that we have, that there's this conversation that's happening right now about how people view the police. Right. And yeah, this is I think going to be a very interesting topic.
It's kind of an eye-opener for me, learning about what police roles and functions were actually in historically, and what they're actually meant to do now.
Right.
A little different than what we think in our community.
Right.
Is what police are for. So.
Yeah. Well, before we continue on, I have to do the new thing, because I have a quote to sort of kind of give our framework. But this is going to be the framework that we're going to try to build off of, and it's going to be this quote right here. And think about this when we're going through our conversation, and think about this when we're analyzing this information that we've gathered, because we had to go out there and educate ourselves in a way that, like what you were saying, is very eye-opening.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, I didn't even know that.
That changes everything.
Yeah. So it is, right? So here's the quote for this one.
Okay.
It's not what you think, it's how you think. Right? And that's crucial. Right? It's not what you think, but it's how you think.
I mean, you can apply that to a lot.
Everything. This is
how
one of
we focused on this topic.
Right.
Yeah.
It's not what you think. It's not what you think. It's how you think.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you just start going down the rabbit hole on that, and you think about, well, yeah, there's police violence. Okay, yeah, we know that. Right. What? Yeah, we know that. But let me hear the thinking process that you're actually going through to determine what is police violence. Right. Do you even know what the police are? What are their purpose? What's their function? Why are they even here? Why are they a part of the government? Right? There's like all of these different things right here that I think that, well, I'm glad that I went through actually doing this intelligence analysis and seeing, oh, okay, these are the police. So, cool. That's where we're going to kick it off from. It's not what you think, it's how you think.
That's how you think.
Yeah, and it all stemmed from an article that I was reading. Remember, I sent you this text message or whatever. But I was reading an article, and then the end statement of it sort of kind of set me on fire, right? And this article was written by Michael Eric Dyson, and it was this end statement that he did, and I was just I'm still on fire from it. Right, because I'm rocking back and forth, right?
It's a great statement to invoke some thought.
Yeah. So this is what Michael Eric Dyson said in his article, which I'll probably put the link up in the show notes. But this is called Death in Black and White. And that was the name of the article, Death in Black and White. And it's basically a response to all of these killings by the police. And I even hate to say all of these killings, because there's not that many killings. They're just basically being made aware of because of social media and
Correct.
The access of information. But this is what happened, because during the past few weeks, there was 2 guys that were killed by police officers. One of them was Alton B. Sterling, and then the other one, I think his name was Philando
Castile.
Yeah, Fernando Castile. And of course, the police officers used deadly force, and then they killed these people. And that's a tragedy. It is a fucking tragedy.
I mean,
But
I've seen the the videos online know that
Yeah.
it's pretty ridiculous,
Mm.
to say the least. I don't even know how to describe it.
Yeah, kind of sets you off, but this is his closing statement that Michael Eric Dyson said. And you can fill in the blank when you think about the we and the you, right? But this is what he said. We cannot hate you. Not really. Not most of us. That is our gift to you. We cannot halt you. That is our curse.
Yeah.
Right? That fucking set me off. Right? That is our gift to you, and this is our curse. Right? I still, I mean, yeah, it is very poetic. It sounds so good. Right?
It's
But
more than that.
yeah, but it's just like, oh my gosh, what? Seriously? What do you mean we cannot hate you? You know, this is our gift to you, but we cannot halt you because this is our curse to us. Right? I hear this and I automatically think of social responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Social responsibility and the lack thereof it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, this is all stemming from the police. Yeah, all stemming from the police. So, flipping the page. We already got a background. Do you have any history of the background of like what happened? Do you want to give a recap on that?
Just what I was researching about Philando Castile. He was pulled over at least 52 times in quote-unquote recent years, which is not really qualified, but 52 times does seem excessive for anybody, depending on what recent years is defined as. Then I came across some stats, which stats are always just stats. In 2011, I think it was a survey by the U.S. Justice Department, Bureau of Justice Statistics.
The Bureau of Justice
Yeah.
Statistics. That's a fucking mouthful.
Yeah, right? I don't know, they probably named themselves that. 13% of black drivers were pulled over compared to 10% of white drivers. This was in 2011 based on this survey. I don't know where it was done. I don't know if it's overall the U.S. or whatnot, but this was the stats from this one article I read. But what's interesting is that 68% of the black drivers considered the stops legitimate compared to 84% of white drivers. So there's that perception. Because the percentage, 13% on 10%, I don't know if that's statistically different, but the perception is already there about what's legitimate and what's not.
Okay.
And the experience of feeling what's legitimate and what's not. So.
Okay. So yeah, I think before we even continue on, we need to get some grammar down.
Mm-hmm.
Right. We need to get some grammar down because I think it's important that we need to understand what are the police and what is the purpose of the police.
Right.
Because there is a purpose and there is a baseline understanding of what the police force is supposed to do. And I think that this is a major disconnect between our state of thinking right now.
It's the major take home I got from this entire study.
Yeah.
This entire exercise that we're doing right now.
Yeah. It's a fun. Right? It's fun. It's fun.
It's
Yeah, that's a frustration.
Yeah.
A frustration side. Okay, so all right, here it goes, right? So I'm gonna break down the grammar section of police. All right, so of course I'm gonna go through the MU, which is the modern usage, and then the ETY, which is the etymology. Right, so you have to see the history, and then you have to see the current state of how it's being used. So the current state of how police, whenever you think about police, this is what police literally means. It means the force that maintains security of. Fill in the blank of whatever of means, right? So this is what police means. It's the force that maintains security of your safety, your neighborhood, your community, blah, 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 by carrying out control, right? Mm-hmm. So carrying out the control are the laws that have been established by whatever the group is to say that they're out there, right? Mm-hmm. So this is what the modern usage of the police is, right? The etymology, which of course it's Latin and Greek. You have polis, right? So polis is the Greek term for city, right? So, you know, of course, the police are going to have to be in a city because you're going to have a shitload of people out there, right? And you're going to have to maintain some type of control, right? And in the Latin term for it is politia, right? Which just means civil administrator, right? So you can see the links. You can see the links between a civil administrator and a city and maintaining control, right? So this is what the police do, is that they maintain control over a population or over the city, right?
I read the preservation of order, but you got a bunch of people living together in close quarters. You have to create order.
Yeah, but then order, that's
different.
Yeah, I was like, I don't even know what that means to maintain order, because we're probably gonna figure it out because I went through the my standard methodology of how I gather information, and I've gotten the ancient, the medieval, and the modern, right? So I've hopped through these 3 steps right here just so I can understand, and it was a lot. This is going to be a long series.
I think that's case in point, though.
Yeah.
Order, security there's so many versions. Do we really know? Like, there's so many renditions of what is the police for. I say order, you say security of safety, property, whatnot. Some might say to maintain certain systems. So the fact that we can't figure out a main objective, a primary objective that's universal, means that we're already having breakdown into what police are functioning for and what we think police function for in our culture.
Yeah, because most people are going to say to protect and serve, right? Yeah.
Fun fact. I'll come back to that.
You got a fun fact on
that one? I have
a
fun fact about protect and serve. It was not, that motto was coined in 1955 after the LAPD had a contest for their motto.
Oh, really?
And people submitted ideas, and that was chosen, and it was by Officer Joseph Dorobek.
Ah, that's pretty cool.
So it was not so much a motto that the police has been known for, built upon, or that was their mantra.
Yeah.
Or elevator speech. It was a winning motto that sounded great from a contest because it had PR pizzazz.
That's pretty cool.
So there you have it, because a lot of people see that on the side of every police car. They're like, that's what the police are for. They're to protect and serve.
That's media. Gotta love it. That's what media does. Spins.
They're there for me. They're going to protect me.
Well, technically they should be. Technically. But
they're there to protect the law.
Yes,
we'll get to that.
The law. Okay, so here we go. And then here's this is what I would define as the most thorough definition of what the police are.
Okay.
Right. The police is a body empowered by the state to enforce the law, to protect property, and to limit disorder. Okay. Right. So that's basically what the police are. They are a monopoly of power, and they can actually enforce it. Right. So they can enforce the law through the use of force, right? Which means that if they need to string you up, throw you on the ground, or do all these things, that they have all of that authority has been given or granted to them by the state, right? And it's agreed upon, allegedly, by all of us citizens that say that, yes, we grant you, police, the right and the authority to use force on us, and we're going to make sure that you're the only ones that can use this type of force on us. That's a rabbit hole that I would like to go down later. Not today, but I want to go down that one later. But yeah, just know that this body, the police, are the only people that have a monopoly on force.
I was just going to talk about monopoly on violence.
Yeah, go for it.
Coined by Max Weber, a sociologist in 1919, described monopoly of violence as any organization that, I can't read my writing, basically the exclusive right to use, threaten, or authorize physical force against residents of its own territory.
What? Say that again?
Any organization
right
I can't read my writing. That it uses the exclusive, or that holds the exclusive right to use, threaten, or authorize physical force against residents of its territory.
Yeah.
So that was coined by Max Weber, a sociologist, in 1919, defining "quote unquote" monopoly on violence.
Yeah. Yeah. See, this is where it kicks into my freedom-loving ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because, and now I'm going to go back and I'm going to steal your sign or your saying about the devil that you know.
It's not my saying.
I know, but the first time I heard it was with you.
The devil you know is
yeah.
better than the devil you don't know.
Yeah, the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't know.
Similar to the lesser of two evils.
Yeah.
A little bit different.
But the police actually do serve a function.
Of course.
Right? They do have to maintain order, and they do have to have this specific presence in this force, and they are the only ones that have been granted by the state, my mortal enemy. But then I have to respect the state, right? Because the state allows me to do what I'm doing right now, right? Even though I disagree with a lot of things that they do. Yeah.
It's a complicated relationship.
Right. Yeah. It's it's like, oh my God, you're beating me, but I love you so much because you allow me to do all these things, but whatever, keep beating me.
No.
Yeah.
That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah, just keep going, right? but the state grants a body or this group the power to use force and violent force, and these past few weeks they've used that violent force, and it's been spread through social media, through because they killed a couple people, and then somebody turned around and then they actually used violent force against them, and this is the guy Micah Johnson. Yeah, Micah Johnson, who was a sniper, military trained, 25 years old, black dude, who basically went off. He just went batshit crazy.
Wanted to kill white people, especially officers.
Yeah, and this is the danger that I think that we're slipping into right now, is where you are going to have groups of people that are going to slip off into that danger crazy zone of where they're going to take other people's lives unnecessarily, right? And this is what Micah Johnson did, right? And Micah Johnson was also instigated by probably the type of people that he was hanging out with, because they were sort of kind of extremist groups, right? And any extremist groups, to me, these are
talk about often.
Yes, right. Extremism, any extremist group, they have to be looked at as far as the enemy, right? Because they don't like to play nice with other people. They just don't.
They're intolerant. We live in a world with too many people.
Yeah.
Who all deserve freedom for people that are intolerant.
Yeah, and then we have this one thing that we keep harping on, and that's going to be the main focus on this, is that you have the right to think what you want to think and say what you want to say, right? But you do not have the right to take somebody else's life, right? You do not have the right to cause harm onto anybody else, right? And this is what these people are actually doing. Yes, the police are infringing on certain rights like this because they're so trigger happy right now, but they're not as trigger happy as we think, right? Because based off of the data, the police are less inclined to kill black people than they are to kill white people, based off of the data. That'll be in the show notes too. So so when people say that they're killing us and they're hunting us down, yeah, I can see that, because of it's about your perception of what it is that you're seeing and what it is that you're witnessing, right? But when the majority of violent crimes in our country, in America, are being done by a population that only makes up 12 to 13% of this country, right? That's a fucking problem. Right, that's a problem. That's a problem that we need to talk about and we need to figure out how to fix. But that's another discussion that we'll get on later. We need to get back on track and figure out the police, right? Let's do the what are they? The grammar stages of the police, right? So we at least know why we're here. We're here because what set it off was the incidents that happened the past few weeks.
Right.
Right. So we got that under the table. Things
that.
have set us, right? So now we have a clear definition of what the police are, which are the body, empowered by the state to enforce the law, to protect property, and to limit disorder.
Okay.
All right, cool. So those are them. And then I like the one that you have by Max Weber, right? About the police. The police have a monopoly
on violence.
Yeah, on violence. Yeah, so they have a monopoly on the use of violence.
Their authorized physical force.
Yeah. So let's go to the origins.
Okay.
So historically, I'm not going to talk about China because China had a police force, but they called them something else. But I'm going to go back to something that's more Western, meaning it's going to trace back to the Greeks, right? And in the Greeks, during their ancient times, their police force, they had a police. And if you want to know who they were, the police during the ancient Greek times were public slaves. Right? This was who the police were. They were publicly owned slaves. And their purpose...
Talk about a civil servant. Huh?
Right? Yeah, you are. You are a civil servant. Right? That's a good one. I like that.
I'll be here all week.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're literally a servant, huh? A civil servant. A publicly owned... Oh, look at that. Servant. And then their functions. Tell me what you think about their functions and if you've found anything different from this. And
in Greece?
Well, no, just in general. Just like think about police and think about these functions, right? Think about the functions because I'm talking about the ancient times, right? So these were the functions of the police who were publicly owned slaves. This is what their purpose was. This is what they had to do. They had to maintain crowd control. They had to deal with criminals. They had to handle prisoners. And they had to make arrests, right? This sounds pretty familiar, right? It sounds very modern, if you want to call that. You know, is that you're dealing with the crowd control, right? So whenever you see protesters out there, right, who's always around? You always have the police, right? So the police are always around maintaining crowd control so nobody goes off or nobody does anything silly, right? They're always dealing with criminals. Right, because that's what the police do. They go out there and they make the arrest, and whoever we deem are criminals, they're the ones that get brought in. I just linked those two. But here's the kicker: the investigation of crimes. The police in ancient times, they didn't do that. That was always done by the regular citizen, the citizens.
And then they would bring the evidence to whoever was going to make a decision about who was guilty and innocent,
whoever the person in charge was.
Or did they take the almost like a responsibility, like crime was committed on me, so therefore I'm going to enact justice myself, and I have the right to do that as a citizen. Was that the case? Or?
I didn't even go down that one.
Okay.
Yeah, but I know you had a senator or somebody who was in a position of authority, right? Because they were the authors.
So there was a third party then.
Yeah. So, that's how the ancients dealt with it, meaning the Greeks. And then the Greeks taught the Romans, right? The Romans actually just used the soldiers. They used the military as their police, and then they broke them up.
Right.
Yeah. But then if you trek up now, so we have the ancient time or the beginning time. And the police were the slaves who maintained control over the polis, and the polis was the city, right? And then you get into the medieval times, and I'm going to focus on England because England
had the first police as we adopted our idea of police. That was later on, though.
Yeah,
I'm sure you're going to go much earlier, but
later on, yes, the modern sense. But in England, the police, they were just nothing but a private system funded by the lords and the nobles, right? So if you keep seeing this trek, right, there's a group of people that funds a security force that maintains control.
They're security guards.
Yeah.
maintain the class system,
Mm-hmm.
and make sure that they don't get my shit.
Yeah. Don't take my shit.
Don't take my shit.
Yeah. Don't take my shit because we're trying to do business.
Right.
Right. Which I think is a cool thing. Right. Is that you need to have a bodyguard so you can do trade. Right. I think that's what it all boils down to, is because you want to be able to trade. Right. Because that's what I wrote down. What was the function of the police during the medieval times? And it was to maintain order in their lands.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So whoever these nobles were and these lords were, they were the ones who had to employ the police, right, or the security force, or the constables,
Mm-hmm.
right. So they were the ones who funded it all, right. And then they made people do this through tithings, right. So then people would pay like 10% of whatever it was.
They were community tax, just like right now our taxes go to to fund the police.
Yeah.
County
So
and local.
they all pitched in, right. They all sort of kind of pitched in through tithings, right, which is very churchy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they pitched in through it, and yeah, they went that route just so they can protect their lands or each other, however it was that you wanted to think about it,
Mm-hmm.
right? But whoever their government was at the time, which were the lords and the nobles. Now, the early modern time, I have to start off with France, because it was King Louis. Yeah, King Louis crushed it. And he was the first one to actually create a centralized police force, right? So it was the Frenchies who did it first, right? The French, they always get all this shit. They get, so what did you do? We were the first ones to come up with a raisin after the Greeks. But yeah, they just, this is what they did. So they were the first ones to actually have a centrally organized police force.
Mm-hmm.
And in their function, I like this one. Their function was ensuring the peace and quiet. This is what the police did. They ensured that there was peace and quiet within the city of Paris, right? They also purged the city of what, meaning the people, who may cause disturbances, right? So if they didn't like you and you were riffraff,
Get out the riffraff.
yeah, you get out, not in my house, right? Yeah, right. So then they also were responsible for procuring abundance, right? So basically, they just made it safe for people to do trade and do things like that, right?
Okay.
So that's what they did. So procuring abundance. That sounds, sort of kind of like old Frenchy, but this is technically what they did. They just made it safe so people can do business. And then this is the one that piqued my curiosity too, is that they made sure everyone lived according to their station and their duties in life.
So again, maintaining the class system.
Yeah. So there it is, right? We're starting to see this pattern, is that they do maintain order, right? They do make sure that it's safe for business, right? And then they also maintain a specific class order, right? So
it's like pervasive throughout history. They're not here. They weren't there to defend individual freedoms. They're operating to defend specific ideas.
Yes. Yes. The specific ideas that were often
We call them laws.
Yeah, laws, but then they were created by some specific other class, the ruling class, if you want to call it that. So
Sure.
So the police were always the servants to the ruling class to maintain the social norms of the other people.
Right.
So things can always be how they are. And then we got the final one. The final one was where you were going with it, was the English.
Mm-hmm.
What'd you get on that?
Let me find my notes are all over the place.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'll set it off, and I'll let you catch up. So,
1827 was the first establishment of quote-unquote police force in England. This was after, like, we're talking about post-Civil War era. I mean, there were many forms. They called it different things, the constables and
Right.
X, Y, and Z. But as far as maintaining this centralized police force that would police the city, and then America followed in 1835 to 1845 in cities like New York, Boston, and Philadelphia. Before that, in the mid 1800s, citizens were expected to protect themselves, and the police and constables of those times were considered more of a supplementary or adjunct type service.
Yeah, so the people had to secure themselves.
Yes.
And then they were like, you know what, this is too hard.
We just want you to do
Yeah, yeah. Which I think is smart. I mean, we outsource everything. We fucking outsource everything. That's why we go to restaurants, because it's like, I don't want to cook. I don't want to cook. I'm going to go to a restaurant because I'm going to pay somebody to cook for me, and they better make this food really, really good. Better than what
better
I can
than
make
I
at
make
home.
it at home.
Right? Yeah, they better. So yeah, we've constantly been outsourcing things, right? We've outsourced everything. We've outsourced our consciousness, and we call it religion, right?
That's a whole other podcast series.
Yeah. So when we outsource our consciousness on the what is good and what is bad, that's religion, right? And now we are outsourcing how do we protect ourselves, right? I don't have the time to protect myself because I'm too busy working and doing things like that. So I'm going to outsource that, and I'm going to outsource this, and I'm going to give a group of people who are specifically trained to protect me.
But remember, they're
others.
not there to protect you. They're there to maintain order. If you get protected by those means, all well and good.
Yeah.
But the number one mission is to maintain order.
But I was thinking, if I was a noble or one of the individuals that was actually hiring these people.
Then you're hiring bodyguards.
Yeah, well, that's what they are.
That's different.
Yeah. Well, I hate to say it, but essentially, that's what the police are. They're bodyguards.
I disagree. Yeah.
Oh, you do?
I do.
Okay, go. Tell me why. I'll give you my reasoning. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So the reason why did I say that they're bodyguards, and that's all that they essentially are, is because the body is the public, right? And then they must guard the public.
But when you say protect me individually, then that's where I find
to protect me individually.
Yeah.
If I was a noble.
Okay.
Yeah, if I was a noble or if I was a lord, because me individually means that you must maintain control over my lands.
Fair enough.
Right.
There.
Yeah.
I think that doesn't translate till now, but I think you're using it right there. That's spot on then. Yeah.
Yeah, but then it's more abstract. It's the same meaning though to me. It's the same meaning, but it's just a little bit more. It's just abstract, right? Because now we say that the police are here to protect people, the public, the body, the workers, right? The civilians, whatever, right? Even though that's a weird state too, because police are civilians too.
No, if you have a group of people, citizens that are creating disorder, they're being, I don't know, maybe they're looting a store or whatever. The police are not going to rally to protect them because they're protecting individuals. They're going to rally to protect the order.
Yeah.
Of the community.
Yeah. So
individual protection is no longer, or is not, and probably never has been. The main objective. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, individual protection is not really there. They just want to make sure that the status quo is the status quo.
Exactly, and I think that's what people really get hung up on.
Yeah.
And I'll talk about that a little later.
Yeah. Because then we have to define, well, what is the status quo? And I think that shifts throughout time.
Of course it does.
Yeah. So
who's the status quo are you talking about?
Yeah. So now let's talk about the modern, the origins of the modern state of the police. All have to come from, once again, London, England. Yeah, you know what you were reading off, because you said that they came from there, right? But it was Robert Peel. Yeah, he would be considered the father of the modern British police. And I wrote down his ethics. Because I can dig his ethics. The what it was that he was saying that all police must do, must maintain, and must have. It was based off a very simple rule-based system, and I think this rule-based system has been forgotten, right? And maybe it needs to be reintroduced, but I'm not sure if it could be, because there's so much bureaucracy that's going on right now. But people could probably reintroduce these themselves if they wanted to. But basically, this is what he said. Every police officer is issued an ID to ensure accountability, right? So whenever somebody says, what's your badge number? What's your name and your badge number? This is the ID that Robert Pill instituted back in the day. He's like, I need to know who you are and where you're from, because I can track you. So that way, if you do anything wrong, I can go right to your ass, and I know that it was this mofo right here in this place at this time, and this is what he did. Here's his ID badge and blah, 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 right? So we can go from there, right? This is the second one that he said. The number of arrests are not the unit to measure, but the unit to measure is the lack of crime, right? This just shoots all quotas out the door, right? So any type of revenue generating scheme that the police have ever had, right?
The cop that waits in the corner,
right?
When you're speeding by,
right? It's like, whoa, yeah, end of the month. So wait a minute, bro. Are you just generating revenue for your police department, or are you trying to actually keep down crime, right? But if you're just giving me a ticket for speeding, has there been an increase in automobile accidents within the past few years? I don't know. Like, these would be questions that I would be thinking, right? Just me getting a ticket for, because my I can understand a fix-it ticket, but yeah, just me getting a ticket for doing something, that really doesn't cause too much harm. And then the last one, I like this one, is that the police are the public and the public are the police. Right? So the police are the public and the public are the police. It starts to look like some yin yang stuff, right? Because yes, the public must police themselves, because the public are the city, right? The public are parts. They are the base unit of the city, and they must police themselves, right? They must maintain security for themselves, right? They must make sure that the rules and the laws are being adhered to, so crazy shit doesn't happen. What are you thinking? You just like zoned out?
No, I'm trying to find this. That made me think of, how did the police police themselves?
I don't know. Don't they have an internal police
Yeah,
department?
it's called internal affairs. There's a lot of international equivalents that exist. As of late, now we have these wonderful body cameras. And there are some historical laws that have been enacted or to try to the checks and balances, if you will, for police power, police force.
Like what?
So to regulate the police, there's been criminal procedure laws these are a lot of buzzwords that I was talking about earlier that I'm finding is the fact that we can't universally define them makes for some sticky definitions and situations.
Which one?
So things like police discretion. Right? Police discretion. What my discretion about a situation, what your discretion about a situation are two different things. So we're going to carry down different interpretations of a law. That's sticky. Okay, so these enactments are supposed to kind of police these varying discretions. They call it arbitrarily, unjustly, or the exercise of powers of arrest, use of force, and search and seizure, because those are the most significant powers that the police exert.
Of
arrest, use of force, and search and seizure.
Okay.
So you had the Miranda warning. And that's to prevent against self-incrimination when you're being arrested.
Isn't that weird? You incriminize yourself.
Yeah.
It's just weird. I did it. Wait, you didn't read me my Miranda law.
Right.
Oh, okay. It doesn't count. Whatever. Yeah, but go.
Yeah. Imagine reading your Miranda rights to someone whose English is a second language and they have no idea what you're saying. Anyway, so then no hold. You can't hold someone for more than a quote-unquote reasonable amount of time. So here we get into another gray area. What is a reasonable amount of time? Well, some people might define that as 24 to 48 hours. Depending on why you're being held, I think that could be an excessive amount of time, but apparently that's considered a reasonable amount of time, but it's not defined. You're not allowed to use torture, abuse, or physical threats to get a confession, right? You can lie, you can trick, you can use mental kind of tactics, but you can't use physical force. Okay. You can't search a person without a warrant obtained without showing probable cause. Again,
this is all modern stuff.
No, I took it from like one of the police websites. What is probable cause? Probable cause, in my definition as a cop, would be different than your probable cause. So you have to show probable cause except in these situations. The first is you can search someone if they give you consent. Okay. The second is if you search with intent to arrest, which to me seems kind of tricky. I don't quite understand that. You can search a motor vehicle without probable cause.
You can search a motor vehicle without probable cause?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
I thought you had to have.
And the fourth is exigent circumstances. Again, another gray area.
That's too wordy for I don't even know what exigent
I don't either.
even means.
I'm thinking that's a circumstance that someone might deem an emergency. Oh, I'm going to break into this house and search it because I hear a crying baby or something. That's what they always use on Law and Order or whatever. I'm a high school dropout, so I have to actually look up exigent because I need to figure out what this word means. I know what X. So these are all these things that are supposed to be put in place to kind of temper police power, but these things are not very well defined. And the average person doesn't know their rights about these parameters.
What was it, exigent again?
Exigent circumstances. Okay, so there's also something called a Terry investigation.
What?
So this is an investigation where Terry versus Ohio, 1968, the court decided that it was going to divide seizure into two parts. First, an investigatory stop, and then the arrest. So during this investigatory stop, a police officer's search is confined to what is minimally necessary to determine if the suspect is armed. So I'm thinking about what happened recently in the news, right? And the intrusion is made for the sole purpose of protecting himself and others nearby. And for then to obtain the weapon.
Okay.
So before this Terry, every police encounter would constitute into an arrest, giving the officer the full range of search authority.
So the police can essentially do whatever they want.
Yeah.
This is what you're saying.
So this is why this case came to court.
The Terry. So the police can do whatever they want.
Basically. So now in this investigatory stop, the Terry stop is limited to searching for weapons only.
Okay. So.
Which I don't know if much has changed.
How do you think that this is relevant now?
The officer's search is confined to what is minimally necessary to determine whether a suspect is armed. So, in the case of...
Speaking all lawyerly now.
No, well, no, I'm just reading what I learned. I don't...
She's like, in the case of... Yeah.
No, Philando Castile. According to the video I saw, he was
He was already shot.
but before that, apparently he said, I have a concealed weapon, I have a permit, blah blah blah.
But this is what was verbalized that
Right.
his girlfriend said that he said.
So based on that,
Mhm.
that's what I'm thinking. That's what reminded me of this Terry Law.
Okay. Yeah. So.
But under the quote unquote discretion
Yeah.
of
So
the cop, he
so
was shot.
this is where I actually want to go with this conversation, and it's not going to happen tonight
Mm.
because we just had to do the basic grammar stage of
Yeah.
what the police are. But now that we understand that, because you were delving off into like modern day tactics and
Mhm.
what it is that they can do, and it sounds like they can do a lot. It sounds like that they have free
It's
range.
not well defined. As I'm doing my research, I
Mhm.
can't find hard and
Mhm.
fast rules. I can't.
Yeah.
It's just discretion and gray lines and
Yeah. So they have. It
Yeah.
sounds like a bunch of loopholes. But
yes.
when I think about the father, who was the daddy? Who was the one who put out the first seed? Was Robert Peel, and he had those three rules, right? Those three rules. It was like, yeah, you can probably create a modern day police
Mhm.
force with those three rules. But then thinking about the function, and this is where I want to go, or basically maybe close this one out. And then the next one that we talk about, the police,
Mhm.
I actually want to talk about the origin of the police in America, and it being actually from slave patrol,
There you
right?
go.
Because slave patrol, if you can make the link between slave patrol and the link from Robert Peel, and look at the modern day things that are actually happening, especially to the black community, because they're the ones, or it's basically any community or any minority community, meaning that they might not be fitting a certain social class.
Mhm.
They get their asses handed to them because they are patrolled more,
Mhm.
and that's only because of historical stats that shows that more crimes are done here,
Mhm.
right? But here's the root functions of the police is that they're supposed to be strong and centralized, right?
Mhm.
They're supposed to be politically neutral.
Mhm.
The police force is supposed to maintain social order. The police force is also supposed to protect people from crime. And the police force is also supposed to act as a visible deterrent to urban crime and disorder, right? So these are the main functions that I think all police forces
That's pretty straightforward.
should have, right? So
Yeah.
when we start getting into legalese
Mhm.
and just getting super wordy,
It's hard to make sense of it.
yeah, you confuse the fuck out of people, and that's not cool,
Yeah.
right? That's
Yeah.
not cool
Yeah.
for, especially for any type of government organization.
Especially if you're supposed to know your rights when it comes to police
Yeah.
and how they're supposed to function in our community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, yeah, that's the intelligence brief on this one, right? This is the start of the police, because the police are a main arm. It's one of the primary arms of the government, right? It's because the government is supposed to maintain security abroad and within, right? So they're supposed to maintain security abroad, and they do that through military force, right? And then they also maintain security within through police force, right? So we as citizens and we as people, we need to start thinking about, well, what type of security is it that we want, right? Yeah, what type of world is it that we want, and what is the role proper for the police force now, right? Because the world is getting safer. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care when you look at social media or you do anything like that. Yes. The world is technically getting safer. And just because you see one person get shot, two people get shot, and then you start crunching the numbers and you look at the data and you say, well, okay, well, violent crimes are actually on the decline, right? That's a good thing, right? But when you do see somebody getting shot, then you're like, that's a bad thing. That's sort of kind of cool. You can focus on that. Well, hey, why is that person getting shot? And you start thinking about the things that are happening on the back end of well, why are the police officers so high strung? Okay, let's talk about that. Why are they so high strung? What's going on? Are they high strung in all neighborhoods or only certain neighborhoods? And if they're only high strung in certain neighborhoods, what about those neighborhoods make them more high strung than in these other neighborhoods? Right? This is the conversation that we're going to continue on with this intelligence debrief, right? But now at least we have a clear definition of what the police are and their function, right? So we know what they are and what their function is supposed to be. And now we need to think about how we as people interact with that. Yeah, that's going to be the next talk, at least on the police intelligence. Cool?
Cool.
Yeah, this was fun.
Hopefully it was informative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it should be. Yeah, the 3-step hop. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. Go level up.